Okay, today we look at Chapter 14, Citizenship in Schools. The U.S. school system has two purposes. The first is to develop the individual citizen, and that is giving you equal opportunity to learn and to study, and equal opportunity to succeed. The second purpose is the development of our nation, teaching you how to contribute to society, how to work together. In the early days of the U.S., our early schooling, in 1647, the first law was passed in the U.S., or in the colonies, I should say, because we weren't the United States yet, but in the colonies, to set up public schools in all but the very smallest of the towns. And in these public schools, you would learn to read the Bible, and it's going to shift the responsibility of education from the home setting to an actual school. Now, usually these public schools were only for the wealthy. The poor weren't able to go because they tended to need to have jobs at a very early age to help out their families. By the 1800s, we will see a reformer called Horace Mann. And Horace Mann is going to ask for free public education for all children, with the exception of minority groups. But all white children was fine. But he's going to meet a lot of opposition on this because there's a lot of people who are like, I don't have kids. Why on earth should I pay for somebody else's kids to go to school? And it was really felt that these free public education, free public schools would ruin the private schools, that they would take students away and the private schools would no longer exist. And there was a lot of people who just felt that schools should be under the control of the church and home and not the government. Well, supporters of Horace Mann says, well, everybody needs to read and write. Democracy needs to have educated voters. And private schools are a little expensive. And private schools may not always teach democratic values. They teach Christian values or church values, but not necessarily democratic values. And so these public schools are going to gain more and more popularity. Now, at first, they were very limited to just elementary schools. There were very few high schools or like colleges. And those high schools that were around, a lot of them acted like colleges. They were like a teacher's prep school, or they prepped you for college to be in the medical profession or a lawyer or something along that line. So it takes a while, but eventually we get the school system that we have, or the school system structure, I should say, that we have today. And we have this educational ladder that you climb your way up to the top. So at the very bottom, you start with the nursery school, and the nursery school is like a preschool. It's for 3 and 4 year olds, and that's where you learn to play and to get along with each other and how to share and all that kind of stuff. The second level is kindergarten, and kindergarten is for 5 and 6 year olds, and it comes from the German word garden for children. And basically, again, you're learning how to get along, but you are also starting to learn the basics of reading and writing and number recognition, knowing your numbers, knowing your colors, knowing your letters, all that stuff. The next level, the third level, is elementary school. In elementary school, you usually start when you're 6 years old, and you attend for 5 to 9 years, depending on where they break off elementary at. You're learning reading and writing and arithmetic and history and science and health and art and music and PE and all that fun stuff. Then the next level is junior high school. Now, around the nation, a junior high is usually 7th through 9th grade. If it's a middle school, so sometimes it's not a junior high, it can be called a middle school, and a middle school can be a 5 through 8 or a 6th through 8th grade. Or sometimes you can have an intermediate school, which is just a 7th and 8th grade. So it kind of depends on where you're at in the country, and what they call it determines what grades are in it, that kind of thing. But junior high school is kind of like a prep for high school sort of thing. The next level is high school, and there are 3 different kinds of high schools. The first is an academic, and an academic high school is a prep for college. They're getting you ready for college courses. You take a variety of coursework. The second is a technical or vocational high school, and this is where you can learn a trade or an occupation. So maybe you want to learn welding, or you want to learn carpentry, or you want to learn computers, or whatever it is. The third kind is a comprehensive, and a comprehensive high school offers both of the above, both academic and technical and vocational. And so Remsen Union would be an example of a comprehensive high school, because we offer a lot of different things. We offer college prep, but we also offer those home ec and shop classes and business classes and those kinds of things that can prepare you for a trade or an occupation. After high school, there's many different options out there, but typically the next level is a junior college. And a junior college is like a community college. And community colleges are kind of nice because they can offer free or low tuition. And usually they're a 2-year school, so it's not like a ton of time. But they train you for specialized fields, or they are preparing you to move on to a 4-year college. The next level, level 7, is colleges and universities. And there are over 2,000 colleges and universities throughout the United States today. Most of them are co-ed, not all, but most of them are co-ed. And colleges are typically supported by state or local funds, and universities have 1 or more colleges in them. And universities, the difference between a college and a university is that a university offers graduate programs. So if it offers multiple graduate programs, like in business or medicine, engineering, law, education, then it's going to be called a university. And they offer advanced studies in most of these subjects. And a university, like I said, has a graduate school where you study for advanced degrees. So that is our educational ladder. Now, throughout our history, typically it is shown that it pays to get a lot of education. People who have more education typically have higher incomes. And so, what do you do for people that have special needs? Well, in the past, people with special needs that had problems, maybe like ADHD, or they had Down syndrome, or they had a mental, maybe they were in a car accident or something, and they're a little slower. So in the past, they would have been taught in separate classrooms, completely separated from all the rest of the students, and maybe even a separate school even. They wouldn't even be allowed to go to the same school. But today we have a process called mainstreaming, and mainstreaming says that they can be in regular education classrooms whenever possible. Now, not for everything. If you have a mental disability that you're not able to keep up with, or can function at the same level as other students, then it probably isn't a good idea for you to be in that classroom. But if it's a class where you can learn life skills like cooking, or keeping up on current events, or those kinds of things, then that would be a class where you could mainstream and put those struggling learners in the same classroom. Now, does that apply to somebody like with ADHD? Well, ADHD is a behavior disorder. It doesn't mean that they're not smart. It just means that they can't focus. So mainstreaming helps them to learn how to cope and how to focus. Those are skills that you would need to have in order to function in the workforce, in a job force. So there's that. The American values in education, there's a lot of American values in education that we share. The first is that we do believe in free public education, that there's no hidden charges. You are told up front what things cost when you come in to register. The second is that equal schooling is open to everybody, regardless of your race, your sex, your religion, your financial status. You get equal access to schooling. The third is that there's freedom for any creed or religion. We are open, public schools are open to all religions. There's no special prayer or Bible reading, and that all comes to us through the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made that decision. The fourth is that public schools believe in local control, that we have a school board that controls the school. And that's because the people from the area best know what the school needs. We don't have somebody from Washington, D.C. telling us how to run Remsen Union, because they would have no clue what we need in this district. The fifth is compulsory education, and it is required that until you are 18 in the state of Iowa that you go to school. And there are exceptions to that. There are things like homeschooling, where you can be taught at home by a qualified individual as opposed to coming to school. But you still have to attend until you're 18. I know this question's going to come up. What if you don't turn 18 until after you graduate? Well, that's different. You complete your years of schooling. Anyway, number 6 is an enriching environment. American values an enriching environment where you not only are encouraged to take academic courses, but you are encouraged to develop your full potential, so you can participate in sports and clubs and social events and the creative arts and all kinds of fun stuff. There are different challenges for education that are still coming up today, just as they were back in the colonial times. There is still a need for educational reform. We are falling behind still in math and science and reading. And so because of that, it is difficult for us to compete in a world economy. America needs to have highly skilled workers because of this increase in technology, but we are lacking the ability to learn technology and to create technology and to use technology. So we need to see that. Another major challenge in schools today is the violence in schools. Teachers, unfortunately, not so much here at Remsen Union, but in other schools, they tend to have to be disciplinarians rather than teachers, that they have to control their student population and keep everybody safe, as opposed to actually teaching what they want to teach. Like I said, this is in a lot of other schools other than Remsen Union, those bigger schools like metal detectors and having violence prevention programs. Here we, luckily, knock on wood, here we have had very little encounters with violence, and that has been one of the super nice things about being in a small school. So, what does your school have to offer you? Well, your school offers you the basic learning skills. You learn the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic. But you also learn things like public speaking and organizing your ideas and expressing your ideas, using your resources, conducting research, as well as learning how to read and interpret maps and graphs and charts and pictures and cartoons, all kinds of stuff. All these skills that you don't even really think about. The second is that you learn to work with others. It's called cooperation, and learning how to work with others and what you need to do in order to be an effective group member. The third is that you get a good health education. You develop good, healthy habits. You take part in physical fitness and PE or strength training. The fourth is that it is training. You are getting your educational foundations for your future career and preparing you for job opportunities. The fifth is that it is teaching you about citizenship, that hopefully you develop an interest in your community, that you are taught the history and institutions and problems of the United States, and that you develop eventually a sense of loyalty and a love of country and good judgment on your actions, and that you do your fair share. The sixth is that it teaches you considerate behavior, that there is consideration for family, for teachers, for classmates, for friends, and other members of the community. Plus, there's a respect for privacy and property. The seventh is that it teaches you to use your time. It helps you to enrich your life with books and art and music. And it helps you to develop hobbies and to take part in school activities, basically making you a much more well-rounded person. So all of those things that your school does for you. So how can you get the most from school? Well, the habits that you learn will influence who you are and the job that you will have. Getting good study habits, learning how to wisely use your time, how to study, how to incorporate activities, how to exercise and get the right amount of sleep and eating the right way, all of that is going to help you. How to study? Well, basically, you need to learn how to have a regular place that you study. Maybe you like it quiet. Maybe you need to have music playing in the background. Maybe you need lots of light. Maybe you need lots of space to spread out. Whatever it is, make sure it's a regular spot for you. Take notes while reading, or in this case, while you're listening to me. Use your textbook appropriately. Use any study helps that are given to you. Look at the chapter title, look at the section heading, look at the topic sentences. Reread, look at your notes, answer any questions. Take part in your classwork. Bring your material with you to class. Pay attention. Ask questions, form ideas and opinions, and ask for help when needed. All those things are going to help you in your educational process.